welcome to the sort of inaugural, kind of not episode of the Marvel Masterworks podcast slash Vidcast, because we're, can you call it simulcasting or dual casting? I don't know which one it is, but it's both.
The pilot.
Yeah, and it's the reason why I say it's sort of the first episode, but also not, is because I am rebranding the Marvel Cinematic Podcast into the Marvel Masterworks Podcast. And what that will allow us to do is to cover both, as you'll see in this episode, movies, television, and comics, as pertaining to the Marvel universe of characters. Both MCU, both Marvel, Sony, and the whole shebang. So that's what this is. Welcome. I am here with my co-host, Donnie, who on the DC side of things goes by the Emerald Enthusiast. I don't know if he wants to change his name for the sake of this podcast, but that's what he goes by on Twitter. So, Donnie, welcome.
What's up, comic book fans? It's the man who ate too much spicy Christmas food, then opened up a boom tube from Oa to the Marvel Universe. It's the Emerald Enthusiast.
That is the most creative way to describe a bowel movement I've ever heard. Well done. I may have to borrow that for next holiday.
Don't worry if you're a parent listening with kids. You know we keep things kids friendly here.
That's as far as it goes. But so Donnie, there's been, the Marvel side of things has been quiet in terms of filming until recently because of the ongoing pandemic, which is still a thing, and there's a vaccine now, so hopefully that will roll out faster than the Quicksilver and the Flash can run combined, and we can sort of get going.
Beautiful reference.
Sooner rather than later. But that halted a lot of the Marvel progress in terms of what they have coming. Both on the comic side and really the film and television side. But that hasn't stopped Marvel from announcing what's coming. So why don't we start with the one that's had the most, the biggest content reveal, which is the live action side of things. So Disney had recently an investors conference, I think, that they streamed, where they discussed, various projects from their various divisions. And one of those divisions is, of course, Marvel. And so we now know a couple of the films and a whole host of the Disney Plus television entities that are on their way. So we got trailers for WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki. Now,
all of which look extremely interesting, by the way.
Right. Yeah. WandaVision is coming first. I believe January 15th is the date, right? That it's premiering.
I believe that's the date that I heard. Yes.
Now, what did you just quick thoughts on what you thought of the trailer?
Of what, WandaVision?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a very weird show, as it should be. Because Scarlet Witch and Vision, they both have kind of a weird history. There's a lot of unusual events with them. So seeing them in an episodic type of format, they shouldn't be afraid to take chances with this and make it weird, make it very unusual, and leave us guessing as to what's going to happen week in and week out.
It certainly looks like they're going to open up the multiverse on the Marvel side of the equation. And we have it's been confirmed by Kevin Feige that there's sort of a multiverse kind of trilogy at work here, starting with WandaVision, then leading into Spider-Man 3, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
And then culminating with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So, you know from our DC conversations that I'm a sucker for multiverse activity. So that's a good sign for me. And I like the way it's homaged television series of the past. Like I like that little riff. What I was going to suggest to you, and I might suggest it on air, do you think maybe because our next episode will probably be a month from this recording and WandaVision will be in full swing, that perhaps we should review something that pertains to Scarlet Witch and Vision?
I'm fine with that. When it comes to comics, pretty much, I'm down for anything of the, Marvel, DC, Image, anything along those lines. Yeah. So
you'll have to suggest one that I can go grab and
okay.
We'll talk about that after the show. Unless you want to suggest something now, or you want to talk about it after the show, it's up to you. We'll do it. But I think it'd be pertinent to shine a light on a comic that deals with those two, as we're talking about the live action show.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do that. But I'm looking forward to the series. Seems very unique. I'm okay if it goes weird. I just hope it doesn't go Doom Patrol weird, because when I saw somebody eating hair, that's when I checked out. I'm like, all right, I'm out. I'm just no. Same for me. I'm out.
I don't mind that. They can go as weird as they want. I know they won't go as, let's say, adult as some of the Doom Patrol themes.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
But things got a little frisky on that street over there in the DC universe.
Yes, it did.
So I'm looking forward to WandaVision for sure. And
speaking of, this is one of my Christmas gifts here.
Ooh,
X-Men Omnibus. Yes.
Now, does that have the original Stan Lee? Some of the original Stan Lee?
Yes. Like I said, I look forward to this. A lot of these stories, I've been reading comics for 40 years, but a lot of these stories I haven't read in a very long time. So, and especially to get them sequentially, I'm really excited for this. So
right, because I picked up the Comixology is running a sale. Mm-hmm. It's the Marvel Masterwork sale. Funny enough, the name of the show. And for now until January 3rd, you can get volume 1s of the Masterworks line for 99 cents. Awesome. These things usually run from $15 to $20, depending on size, how many issues, and things of that nature. So I picked up the first 5 or 6, and I think when we eventually go that route, those will be the ones that we tackle first, and X-Men was in that pile. So yes. I'm glad you got a book that covers similar ground, so we can kind of try and mash it up so that we cover the same issues.
Right. You will often hear us say, whether it's digital or in print, whatever you do, support the comic book industry. Get out there, put your money into it. So let's keep this genre going. Yeah,
from the first issue to the last. That's how I roll. It doesn't stop no matter what side of the comic we're covering.
I wasn't ready for that this early in the show.
Yeah, well, I like the surprise. But yeah, so I'm on board WandaVision. Next up was the Loki.
Yeah.
Trailer. That looks insane. I'm one of the other things I'm a sucker for is time travel, and this seems to be scratching that itch.
Yeah.
What did you make of where Loki finds himself? What do you think is going on there? Did it look like she was in? There was one scene where it looked like he was in the what is that area called? Remember where Black Widow went to, spoilers, die in Avengers Endgame?
Mm-hmm.
It looked like he was there and Black Widow was sitting there. I don't know if you noticed that. There was one shot.
No, I can't say that I noticed that shot. No. Yeah, I just, Loki does a lot of, interdimensional traveling. We've seen a little bit of that within the MCU. So the possibilities are endless when it comes to that character.
Yeah, and I just think Tom Hiddleston is a perfect casting for that role. He's along the lines of, to me, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Christopher Reeve as Superman, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Go down the list. Yeah. He's in that.
One of my favorite all-time quotes in any movie is "I am burdened with glorious purpose."
Yeah.
That is that is just an amazing line for a villain.
So I'm really excited for this show. I haven't been the biggest fan of the Thor films per se, but what I can say across all three of them is that I loved Tom Hiddleston as Loki. So to get some more of him and to add a time travel element is a recipe for where I say, you sign me up. So looking forward to where that goes, and I like that it dovetails from Endgame, and what happened to him there. So this is a different Loki than the one that we saw get choked up by Thanos. A Loki from a different time. I mean, same guy but different. Sure. So we'll see. And will this iteration of Loki pop up in Thor: Love and Thunder? That is a question that I have. The other trailer we got two other trailers. One of the ones was the What If, the animated series. Now, I love this line of comics per se, first of all.
Yes.
Because for me, on the DC side of things, they're called Elseworlds. And on the Marvel side, they're called What If. And I've read some where the Punisher becomes Spider-Man, and so on and so forth. So that idea of messing with continuity and going in a different direction is always makes for an entertaining read. I love the animation style here.
Oh yes.
And I love the fact that each episode, the way that Kevin Feige describes it, is going to be an alternate version of an MCU film. So I believe the first season is going to be 10 episodes. So we're guaranteed at least 2 seasons of this show.
Mm-hmm. And the imagery is very kind of shocking. One of the images is kind of a zombie Captain America. Mm-hmm. So I really like where they're going with that. And yeah, I remember some of my favorite what ifs over the years. One of them being, what if the Hulk had killed Wolverine? And it really explored some, really wacky possibilities. And so, yeah, there's a number of directions they can go with this series. Very interested. So,
well, I just seeing, what's her name? Peggy Carter as Captain Britain instead of Steve Rogers, Captain America, I think is cool.
Yeah.
Steven, see, they're giving you your people a shout out there. And by the way, just because I do it on the DC podcast, I have to do it here. Both Elizabeth Olsen and Haley Atwell are on the Multiverse Wives list. Donnie knew that was coming.
Yeah, I knew where we were going with that.
Yeah, and so I just had to point that out because I got to be fair. Both sides of the both sides of the comic universe. I gotta
so is it kind of like an omniverse that is kind of?
I do all kind of.
It encompasses both the Marvel and DC sides.
That's correct. When it comes to the wives, it's an omni. Yeah, would it be the omni wives? Yeah.
How many versions of you are there on different Earths?
I don't know, but I have to fight each one of them every time I hop universes. Sometimes I hit my alternate version of myself with a steel chair. Sometimes they give the other one a DDT. It all depends, you know. It depends
you know,
how resistant.
Spit colored mist in their face, you know,
Yeah,
like the Great Buddha. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends how resistant the other version of myself is. Sometimes they comply and they just, whatever. I catch them when they're out at the comic store, and then I just slide in and do my thing. But yeah, that's the way it goes. So I just wanted to point that out. But also, we get to see T'Challa as Star-Lord instead of Black Panther.
Yeah.
And that'll be a nice touch because we get to see or hear Chadwick Boseman again in that role, which will be a nice tribute. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Tony Stark in this iteration as well. So, and I love the animation. The animation style looks great. And you know what I find really interesting is, you know who's playing one of the Watchers?
No, I haven't heard this. What?
It's Jeffrey Wright, Commissioner Gordon. So
interesting. Okay.
He's helping the universe. He's going both. First he helps out Batman, and then he watches over what the MCU is doing. Okay. So that's kind of cool.
From the first wormhole to the last.
There you go. See, you're catching on. So I'm stoked for What If. That is on my must-watch list. So, and Marvel in the past has been hit or miss with animation. Mm-hmm. But this looks like a hit, for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which is actually the title that I'm reading right now. It's called Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yeah. What we'll do is, once we dispense all the news, we'll give our listeners a quick rundown of where we came into, or our little origin story.
So stay tuned for the end of the show.
Yeah, you have to stay tuned to hear that. So beyond the trailers, and I'm not talking about that Grace Randolph garbage. I'm talking about besides the trailers that we got. There is one more trailer. Sorry, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm really excited about this show.
This is the one that I'm most excited for because I was reading Captain America for a number of years when I was younger. So
the reason I'm super stoked about this is because it looks and feels like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and I love that movie. I love that movie more than I do the first Captain America.
A lot of people do, yeah.
So, and I've read a bit of the comics where Sam takes over as Captain America. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. I feel that they were right to give it to him, because had they given it to Bucky, it would have just been, hey, look, another dude from the 40s gets the shield again. So I'm glad it would have been essentially Steve Rogers 2.0.
Plus, Bucky has been through a lot at this point that we've already seen.
Yeah, so I think it's cool to spotlight Sam, and I love their dynamic. Between the two of them, the banter they have, the chemistry they have, and that one scene where he leaps off the plane and is flying through the canyons and is being shot at. That was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So visually, it looks like a movie. And
did they show the red, white, and blue Falcon suit in that? I can't remember. I know that's what he had in the comics when he was Captain America, and I just loved that look for him.
I believe it did have tinges of red, white, and blue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to that. Of the trailers that we saw, just speaking of trailers, that was my favorite.
Likewise.
So there's that. We did get a sizzle reel for Miss Marvel, where it was mainly them talking about the popularity of the character and talking about the casting process of their lead. It seems to me like Miss Marvel is going to be like very much in the same vein as she'll be to Marvel what Stargirl is for DC in terms of
that's a good comparison. Yes.
I'll be honest, I haven't read much of Miss Marvel, but I'm kind of okay with maybe picking up her book after I start watching the show. Like, I like the idea that there are some characters that I have no preconceived notions of, and that I'm a blank slate. So I may wait till that premieres and we start watching it and covering it. That I do a little bit of a dive into the character. But like I said, it was more of a behind the scenes first look thing. So you can't really judge like what the show looks like. It just seems like it has some Stargirl vibes.
Oh, Kamala Khan, she's very popular with kids these days. She's been in a couple different versions of animation. She's, I think, the centerpiece of one of the new Marvel video games. And, she's a humorous character. She idolizes a lot of the older heroes. And so she's just a lot of fun in the appearances that I have read. So,
and the one thing that you could take away from this is that she and the character of, what is it, Monica Rambeau is going to be appearing in Captain Marvel 2.
Yeah.
Which was announced. Or which will come, not announced, but confirmed that it's happening, and things are moving forward with that. Which, great. I mean, Captain Marvel got a lot of, what's the phrasing I can use? Undue criticism and hatred.
I would agree.
It was essentially Ghostbusters 2016. Yes. But whenever, what was the year Captain Marvel came out? 2018.
Yes, it was 2018. It just preceded Avengers Endgame by a couple of months.
So it was Ghostbusters.
2018. Yeah.
In 2018. And look, is it my all-time favorite Marvel movie? No. Is it a solid movie? I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Did I like it better than all three Thor movies? You bet your behind I did. So that's where I am. And by the way, I'm not knocking the Thor character. I love the Thor character. He's essentially kind of like Superman with a helmet and a hammer. So I'm predisposed to loving that character. I love the Straczynski run. I just think the movies have not even scratched the surface of how cool the Thor character can be. And quite frankly, I think they went the wrong turn in terms of where Ragnarok went, but we'll save that for a different podcast.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why I think, we're getting a fourth one, because with Thor, there are so many ways to go with, basically an immortal character. And he has a huge supporting cast, so I like that he's getting another go-round at the cinema.
Yeah. And look, Hemsworth is back, but eventually, if Hemsworth decides, I'm hanging up the hammer, there's Jane Foster, which they're bringing back in this film. There's also Beta Ray Bill, which they could parlay into assuming the mantle. And if they can make a talking tree work, they can make an alien horse-faced Thor work.
Beta Ray Bill is a great character. I really do want to see him in live action. There was a little Easter egg, I believe, in part 3 in Thor Ragnarok. So
speaking of Thor: Love and Thunder, while I'm on the subject, it was confirmed that Batman alum, I gotta do a shout out to my original Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs co-host back in the day. Batman alum, I would never say that about you, Donnie, because you're a cool guy and sane. But former Batman, Christian Bale, is playing the villainous Gore, the God Butcher. So it's Thor versus Gore, and Dawn of something or other. I wonder now, Donnie, what's Thor's mother's name? Do we know? Freya, right?
Yeah, Frigga.
Yeah. Any chance that that's Gore's mother's name? Because I could end this movie right now.
Oh, no. I would love to see Hemsworth go, why did you say that name?
Yeah, exactly. And then Bale's Gore being like, stop using my voice. I'm the master of the raspy voice. So look, I guess Bale took that bit of dialogue from Harvey Dent to heart when he said, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain, because you signed on to Thor: Love and Thunder to play the villain, so there we go. So I'm looking forward to that, because I really want them to nail Thor the way I know the character can be nailed. And you put Christian Bale in anything. I don't think, put it this way, I don't think Bale is just doing this for a paycheck, because I don't think he has to at this point. And if he didn't think this was going to be quality, I don't think he would have signed on, so I'm excited.
I do want to interject, though. There is going to be a Beta Ray Bill solo series coming up. We're going to get to that soon when we talk about the comics. Number 1 will be coming out in March of 2021.
So I'll have to put that on my Comixology order list, or pre-order list, or whatever it's called. But I will. Thank you for mentioning that. I will definitely put that on my to-do list. So now came the announcements of other shows. The first one that got sort of things confirmed is She-Hulk.
Yeah.
So it's confirmed that Tatiana Maslany of Orphan Black fame will play Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk. So the worst kept secret in the MCU is out. Mm-hmm. In addition, we learned that Tim Roth will return as the Abomination, and the Hulk himself, Mark Ruffalo, will appear. And apparently Kevin Feige has described the series as a half-hour comedy series. So you want to explain how that's going to work?
Well, I will say, the She-Hulk runs that I have read, what I remember, she broke the fourth wall a lot. She actually did make a lot of jokes. Jennifer Walters is a character who does have a sense of humor. And yeah, I can see how that's going to work, but obviously it'll have to be a mix with, the Hulk being there. And hopefully with the Professor Hulk version that we saw in Avengers Endgame, there can be a little bit of a course correction, because I don't really feel like they captured the essence of that version of the Hulk very well. That's one of my chief criticisms of Endgame, is I really thought they could have done more with that character. Hopefully we see that in this series.
Yeah. So, I mean, if the character's done that in the comics, then I guess I'll go with it. I haven't read that iteration of She-Hulk. So again, when the show, what I think we should try and do, and we've talked about this, Donnie, is as we're covering the certain show, we'll also read stories featuring those characters and review them at the same time. So it's, the best of both worlds, as I like to say.
Yeah, can't wait for that.
So I'll get my exposure in one, nice dosage. But hey, she's a great actress, and I love the Hulk mythology. And I can relate to the Hulk, because every time I watch a Leaf game, I turn into the Hulk. So I guess mine would be a blue Hulk, but hey.
Yeah. So after we go off the air today, I've got to ask you about how the Leafs are going to do this year. So
well, we'll see. Well, I'll give you my thoughts. But notwithstanding that, the next show that we got confirmed was the fact that Samuel L. Jackson, complete with eye patch and all, is back as Nick Fury. And Ben Mendelsohn from Captain Marvel returns as the Skrull Talos in Marvel Studios' original series, Secret Invasion. Now, Donnie, Secret Invasion was a big event.
Yes, it was.
In the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
How are they going to pull this off as a series?
It would have to be a multi-season series, I would think. You know, and now that's one of the things I didn't like about Captain Marvel was I didn't quite think that they captured the essence of the Kree Skrull War, because from what I remember with that storyline, there wasn't really, you know, good guys and bad guys as far as those two races go. It was just humanity caught in the middle.
Yeah.
So there was no us siding one way or the other. I really think they can do a lot of things with that storyline in this series. And this would also be a good place for the Fantastic Four, I would think. So,
yeah. I'm looking forward to it for sure. I love the Secret Invasion storyline, so I will certainly be checking out that show. It's on, again, must-watch list. And I look forward to actually, what I wanted to say is rereading Secret Invasion as we're watching the show. That'll be fun.
Likewise.
So, because it's truthfully been years since I read. Like, I haven't gone back to Secret Invasion since it came out.
You know, it's funny. A lot of times I will go back and reread old stories because I have been reading for 40 years now. And yes, I'm dating myself here. You know, it's a lot of times it's like reading a story again for the first time. I'll have kind of vague images and I'll remember maybe a few story points, but it's almost like experiencing it again.
Donnie, if you keep dating yourself, people are going to think you went to school with Thor. So you better watch out there. Oh, boy. I went to school with Groot. It's very, very talkative. A lot of I am Groot. Anyway.
You know, it's funny. I remember actually my first exposure to Groot was from the comics. He was, I believe, the monster from Planet X is what he was called. And I remember him fighting the Hulk and kind of making fun of the Hulk's lack of intelligence, which again, very different from the Groot we see in the MCU.
So does he say more than I am Groot?
Well, okay, it's my understanding with the modern incarnation, when he says I am Groot, he actually
he's talking.
He speaks on many different levels. No, the exposure that I remember, he was very different, and he was more monstrous. Again, this was a long time ago, but I read the Hulk for a number of years, and I remember having that issue where Hulk was on some planet and he was attacked by numerous monsters, one of which was Groot. Oh. And Groot was very different than the personality we see in the MCU.
Right. Yeah, no, well, we'll talk about my feeling on Groot in a second, because there's a couple of things with Groot in it that are going to be discussed here. But before we get there, we're going to get a bit of Iron Man flavor in these Disney Plus series, Donnie, because Armor Wars was announced, and that is going to bring Don Cheadle back as James Rhodes, aka War Machine, to Disney Plus. Basically, it's about Tony Stark's worst fear, which is what happens when his tech falls into the wrong hands. Now, this is also a title of a comic book storyline, is it not?
Yes, I believe so. Not one that I have read, but yes, I believe so.
But we will.
Yeah. Although I will say this, I'm so excited because, and don't hate me, people, I have nothing against Tony Stark. I've always preferred War Machine a little bit to Iron Man. Okay. I kind of like, Tony Stark as kind of the brains that runs everything. But James Rhodes being a soldier, I've kind of always preferred him in action to Tony Stark.
I think what I think it is. He's got that Jon Stewart vibe.
Ah, good. Yes. Right. Jon Stewart, for those of you who don't know, is a member of the Green Lantern Corps. And you can catch a podcast called the Emerald Echo Podcast on iTunes and Podbean, hosted by Adam and myself, and it is called the Emerald Echo.
For hockey fans, what just happened there was a pass from Mitch Marner to Austin Matthews, and he finished off the play.
Officially titled The Shameless Plug.
Yeah, exactly. I love the Iron Man character and mythology. Iron Man of the MCU original characters. Tony Stark's my boy. We got a lot in common, minus the drinking issues, and the being rich part. Right. Aside from that, and he's a little bit smarter than me, not by much, but just.
By the way, Demon in a Bottle is a great Iron Man comic. So.
Oh well, I think we should read that then.
Yes.
And I agree with you, by the way. But so he's my favorite MCU Avenger, and to see his legacy continue, and to have War Machine, which is a character I really enjoy, and didn't get enough play in either Iron Man 2 or 3, in my opinion. It'll be nice to see him in the armor again and kicking all kinds of behind. Right. And that's keeping it clean for the parents. Now, if I really
we told you we'd keep it kid friendly.
If I really want to go nuts, I'm going to start talking like Batman in Zack Snyder's Justice League and drop us some F-bombs. But because that just makes everything better, apparently, according to some people. Anyway, where's the? You know what I want? I want the Zack Snyder cut of Avengers: Age of Ultron, where Tony Stark says more than the, I think is the S word, and Captain America just loses it on him.
Yeah, he's like, language.
Yeah, that's what I want. So get on that. Since Marvel apparently has spies that are sabotaging Zack Snyder and all that garbage, why don't we make that happen? A Zack Snyder cut of Age of Ultron. Anyway, but War Machine is not where Iron Man's legacy stops, Donnie, because
yes,
Disney Plus is also bringing us genius inventor Riri Williams. Riri
Williams, yes. Ironheart, yes.
Yeah, right, Ironheart. An original series about the creator of the most advanced suit of armor since Iron Man. Riri Williams will be played by Dominique Thorne. No relation to Jeffrey Thorne, who's writing the next Green Lantern comic, by the way. Mm-hmm.
And we will cover that on the Emerald Echo podcast.
Right. But I've seen Ironheart in terms of I've seen her book out there. I haven't read it yet, but she seems to be a popular character.
Very much so. She has a great backstory. I can't say that I'm up to date on her series, or if she even has a solo series at this point. I want to say I read the first 8 to 10 issues. And again, I thought she was very engaging, and I could see where she would appeal to, younger fans.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's a great way to, kind of carry on the Iron Man mantle.
Now, is she not a Brian Michael Bendis creation?
I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure, I think. I could be wrong on that. Somebody, if I'm wrong, mention it, but do it politely in the comments. Don't tell me off for anything ridiculous like that. Don't pull a Zack Snyder Batman. No, we won't not tolerate anything.
Right. Again, keep it kid friendly.
Right. Yeah. Needless to say, we will be checking more of Ironheart in the comics, and on the screen when that show becomes a physical entity that is more tangible than just the announcement. But I'm excited. Look, okay, Donnie, ballpark it for me. What are the chances?
By the way, you are correct. Brian Michael Bendis and Mike Deodato are the creators of Riri Williams.
And in classic Mr. Perfect fashion, folks.
Da-na,
at the camera. Yeah, I mean, so now I want you to ballpark it for me now, Donnie.
Okay.
I don't think we'll see him physically, but what are the chances Tony Stark is the voice of either War Machine's, inside War Machine's armor, or Riri Williams' armor?
I'll say this. I want to draw a parallel. And by the way, a spoiler for The Mandalorian. If you have not seen all The Mandalorian, I'm getting ready to throw out a big spoiler. We saw 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's not New Year's. Go, Donnie.
We saw Luke Skywalker appear in The Mandalorian, and that got a huge amount of publicity for that show. A lot of focus on that show. If Tony Stark were to be involved in the Ironheart series some way, you have to believe that would garner more interest. So it somehow, some way, I think you have to get Robert Downey Jr. involved in that show, whether it's voicing, like you say, the armor, or making flashback cameos or something like that.
Yeah, he's got to be involved. Or a holographic cameo.
Sure.
I know he said he's done, but come on, really? He's done Doolittle, and that flopped harder than. Well, I can't say what it flopped harder than, because that would decrease the PG-13 rating. But you know where I'm going.
Right. Well, and I'll say this, even though I just said that I enjoy War Machine more, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was built around Iron Man. So for people that were introduced in that way through Iron Man, bringing him back would be just, a huge addition to that show, and really, and the Disney Marvel projects as a whole. So,
and here's what I'll say to the "he's happy and he's done" comment that he's recently stated. Michael Keaton was done playing Batman, and yet the Flash movie is bringing back Michael Keaton. Did anybody ever think we'd see Brandon Routh suit up as Superman again?
Or play, another role of DC, yeah. So never say never.
So I think in the right situation where he doesn't have to suit up again and be the centerpiece for 8, 9, 10, whatever films it was, I think he'll be coaxed back. And hey, a $50 million paycheck wouldn't dissuade him either, I don't think. So I'd put good money on, in some capacity, him having a presence. But now moving away from Iron Man related projects, let's talk about Groot and the Guardians of the Galaxy, shall we? There will be a Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special with James Gunn back to write and direct. This will come in 2022 to Disney Plus, before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And again, it will be directed by James Gunn simultaneously while they're making Guardians Volume 3. What do you think of this, Donnie? Because I think it's why not? Yeah, I think it's good fun.
I think it could be just a huge home run for them. Obviously, this is one of the more comedic properties of Marvel. To make a Christmas special, there's a lot of ways to, make something that's heartwarming and something that is maybe not too impactful as far as the Marvel, narrative goes for the movies, but something that's memorable. So I'm looking forward to this.
Right, me too. I think it'd be fun, and those characters are ripe for a Christmas kind of special.
Yeah. Do you think we see Star-Lord come back to Earth?
Yeah, I think it'd be a cool way to have him explain Christmas to characters that have no idea what the hell that is. Right?
Would be interesting.
Yeah. Sticking with the Guardians, or as mentioned before, we have everyone's favorite little tree, Baby Groot, will star in a series of short films on Disney Plus, featuring several new and unusual characters. Now, I like the idea of them being a series of shorts because I don't know if a 12 to 13 episode, 30 to 1 hour series of Groot saying, "I am Groot," and then trying to decipher that would be the most riveting television in the world.
Did they give like an age range of where this will be? You know, the age range, the intended
target audience.
Yeah, the target audience for the show. Yeah.
No, but I'm assuming it's live action. I don't think it would be.
But I still, the vibe that I get is that it's going to be, aimed at young children.
Oh, and I'll have fun. Yeah, and I'll have fun watching it with my niece. My niece loves.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So much so that I had one of those plants, the ones that danced.
Yeah.
You push the button and then.
I got my daughter one of those too. Yes.
Every time my niece came in my den, she'd be like, "Play Baby Groot, play." So I had to push the button. and it was it wasn't just push it once. It was again, and then it's like, okay, but Groot has to sleep. My excuse was after the 7th time, Groot has to sleep now. But then I just relented and I said, I'm just gonna give her Baby Groot so she can take it home and harass her mother by playing it thousands of times a day. Because what is the job of a brother than to antagonize his sister? And when you get our age, what better way to do that is to have their kids do it for you.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. So she now has Baby Groot, and the other day she actually asked me, she goes, "Do you miss Baby Groot?" I said, "No, I'm happy he's with you and keeping you company." And so she's happy, and so I will enjoy watching that series with her. So I look forward to that. It should be fun. On the movie side of things, Donnie, we did get. Oh well, they told us. By the way, they told us Moon Knight is coming, but they didn't really give us much information. We know that Oscar Isaac is in negotiation to star. That is something that I am really intrigued by. I've heard so many cool things about the Moon Knight character.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done a deep dive yet, but I want to. And hopefully this podcast and that show will give us ample opportunity to do that.
I'm up for that.
But I'm looking forward to it. On the movie side of things, Kevin Feige did say that Blade is definitely in the works with Mahershala Ali as the Daywalker. They're working on storylines, and we will hear more news on that soon. And that news cannot come soon enough, in my opinion. I love Blade, one of my favorite Marvel characters.
Likewise.
And our audience can bet that we will be doing a deep dive. We'll be, better yet, we'll be sinking our teeth into Blade comics on this show.
From the first sword strike to the last.
There you go. That was a lot of cheese, eh? Between the two of us, we made people that are lactose intolerant sick. Anyway, but yeah, we'll be covering Blade. On the movie side of things, they announced that Peyton Reed will be back to direct the third Ant-Man film. And it will be titled Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumanium. I don't know what that means, but sure. Paul Rudd, one of my Earth wives, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, and my Earth 92 wife, Michelle Pfeiffer, are all returning. Jonathan Majors is joining the cast as Kang the Conqueror.
Great villain, by the way. Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
I've heard good things. I don't know much about him, but I've heard good things. And
extremely powerful villain.
I've heard they've recast Cassie Lang to be an older actress.
Okay.
Donnie, it seems to me that they're setting up a Young Avengers scenario at some point here.
Yeah, that could be. And you know, when you talk about characters like Kamala Khan and Riri Williams, you know, there could be some, you know, a younger version of the Avengers coming up, you know, some iteration of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be part of the overall plan.
And we also got, again, the second worst kept secret in the MCU. We also got confirmation that one of my Earth wives, Haley Steinfeld, is officially Kate Bishop.
Right. Again, how many versions of you are there out there?
No, I mean, if we ever met, it wouldn't just be like a Royal Rumble because there wouldn't be a ring big enough to fit all of us in. I think it would have to be like, you know, the War Games when WCW used to do War Games.
Oh yes, yeah.
With the 2 rings and the cages, that's what it would be. And I'd win because, you know, I'm like Ric Flair, the dirtiest player in the game. I got no problem. Hey, I'll poke another version of myself in the eye if it's for, you know, Haley Steinfeld or Margot Robbie. Under the circumstances, I can get really nasty.
Yeah.
But and I could see her being part of the Young Avengers crew. She'd be one of the older Young Avengers, but she's, you know, still a Young Avenger-ish. So
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to Hawkeye as well. By the way.
I think that character cinematically grew on a lot of people.
Yeah, so. yeah, for sure. Although he didn't say you have failed this city, and so I mean, there's that. But in Hawkeye's defense, he doesn't have a nag like Felicity Smoke hanging around him. So there's pros and cons everywhere.
Just don't mention that other character that you're always taking shots at, please.
You mean
no?
We are the Flash? Is that what you're talking about?
I shouldn't have mentioned it. Yeah.
Look, I like Iris when she's written well. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Write her properly, and I'm on board. There's no excuse for her not being as competent a character as Lois Lane.
I think she's not a bad character at all. I have some minor gripes, but we disagree on this. So yeah. Anyway.
Right. But they are not the Flash. Barry Allen's the Flash.
Right.
And Wally West, and Jesse Quick, and Jay Garrick, and 10,000 of the other ones. Iris West is not among them. Anyway, moving on.
And if you want to hear more about the Flash, you can join us on the Flash of Two Mics podcast.
Well, you just set that up for the shameless plug.
On iTunes and Podbean.
That's what you did. You gotta catch up on my drinking with this shameless plug, yeah.
Reel them in.
Yeah. No, Namor wasn't part of the announcement though. So.
Right.
I
have no idea if that's correct or not. I'm not a fisherman. So.
They better do something with Namor, by the way.
Yeah, I mean that's another character that they haven't capitalized on yet, and they really should.
Oh, and by the way, I just want to point out that contrary to a famous, well-known YouTuber's comments, they're not recasting Chadwick Boseman as the Black Panther.
No, I mean, they've already put out a statement, haven't they, that they're not going to recast that part.
Right, but there was a particular YouTuber who has a very screechy voice.
Oh, boy, okay.
and said that, you know, Wonder Woman 1984 was going to be a Flashpoint, which it wasn't, because unless I blinked and missed it, Ezra Miller didn't show up in that movie. But you know, in addition, she said that they were either going to do a CGI double of Chadwick Boseman or recast him. And Kevin Feige said, no, we're going to spotlight some of the other awesome characters of Wakanda in Black Panther 2. Look, here's my take. Shuri's going to be Black Panther. That's my opinion.
I think that's most likely. You know, she has had
or what was the guy's name? M'Baku? Whatever the...
M'Baku, yeah. Letitia Wright, she's caused a little bit of controversy. I think that'll blow over. I think, Shuri has been Black Panther. She's had that mantle before in the comics. So I think that's the most likely scenario.
Yeah. And look, so what? Listen, Letitia Wright can be an anti-vaxxer, an anti-masker. I don't agree with her, personally, but that won't affect me watching the show.
Yeah, likewise.
I just wouldn't go 10 feet with close to her because she, sorry, if I ever get her autograph, I'll mail it in and have her send it back.
Oh, okay.
And then once I put it in a bag and board, I'll sanitize my hand to make sure, in case, whatever. But yeah, look, people can have their opinions as long as they're not Nazis.
Right.
I don't have to eat and cavort with these people or be in contact with these people. So hey, do what you want with your life. I'm not here to tell you what to do, how to judge you with it. That's your call. That shouldn't affect whether she is in Black Panther 2 or anything of that nature.
Yeah, I think that all blows over by the time we actually get the second film. So
yeah, exactly. So anyway, that YouTuber was wrong again, and all is right with the world in that respect. Anyway, the other big film announcement, and I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting them to be this far along in the process, but Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four, are getting a reboot film. And that film has a director. And it is none other than John Watts, director of Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man, whatever subtitle with the word home in it, number 3 will be.
Is it a home run? I've heard that. Is that right?
Is it? Who knows? I would almost call it home world with what's going on in that franchise, but before we touch on Spider-Man briefly, what do you think of John Watts taking charge of the Fantastic Four?
I just think the Fantastic Four needs to be integrated now. They are very important to the history of Marvel, and to see the Marvel Universe develop on screen without them has been just kind of a glaring hole. There was a time that they had more kind of the spotlight, and again, I'm talking a long time ago, than Spider-Man. They were kind of the focus of Marvel. Now, obviously, Spider-Man has become one of the most notable characters in the world, but the Fantastic Four, very important to the development of Marvel. So it's high time they join the party on screen.
And I think he's, as a director and a storyteller, he's exemplified that ability to do a family type oriented, a family centered story. With Far From Home and Homecoming. Now look, are those 2 movies my favorite iteration of live action Spider-Man?
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not.
Okay.
Largely because I think the influence of Tony Stark, as much as I love him, is too prevalent on Peter Parker to this point.
And a lot of Spider-Man purists feel that way.
But that is more, I think, a gripe that I have with the executives at Sony and Marvel, as opposed to laying that on John Watts' shoulders. Because part of the sharing deal, from the Sony perspective, was that they had to have an MCU character appear in each of the Spider-Man films. So that's not John Watts' fault.
Right. We know things have been messy between Marvel and Sony. That's not a secret. So
yeah. So, and where I feel for John Watts with the Spider-Man films is he has to appease 2 studios. Sony, Marvel. That is not an easy job.
Sure.
For any director. With the Fantastic Four job, he only has to take heed from Kevin Feige. So, and again, for the most part, I've liked his Spider-Man, and the MCU take off Spider-Man. I just wish that the costume creation, the web shooters, I want Spider-Man to be more of his own hero.
Right.
He's one of the smartest guys in the room.
Go ahead, sir.
Even at his age, compared to people like Tony Stark and Reed Richards, he's up there in intelligence. Right. I don't know that that's been showcased because in his first film, he was given an updated suit, tricked out with tech by Tony. In the second film, he remade his suit with Tony Stark's technology. You see where I have the issue?
Right. Well, you and I have talked in the past, both being fans of Spider-Man the Animated Series from the mid-'90s, that to me, the problem that I have with all the rebooting of Spider-Man on screen is they always take him back to high school. They always make him young again. They're not comfortable, it seems, with having him in his 20s and kind of being his own individual and showcasing his abilities to function as an adult hero. So I would like to see more of that because I think some of his best stories are when he is in that age range.
I hope that, having said everything I said, I hope that Tom Holland plays Spider-Man for another 10 years.
Sure, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I have no problem with that continuity.
I want to see him grow into that college-age person and beyond. And I think getting an actor that was 18 or 6, what was he, 18 when he got the job?
Something along those lines, yeah.
Getting an actor that young was the right way to go because he can age into the part.
Well, let's hope. I would be down for 6 Spider-Man movies, and I think there's more than enough interest in that character for them to make that many.
And listen, I think that. So just before, because we're going to transition to Spider-Man now because we're on the topic, but before we get off, so you're cool with John Watts on Fantastic Four?
Yeah, I don't judge anything until I actually see it, and it's. Whether you like a director or not, you never know how that director is going to handle certain characters. And so I don't like to jump at something and say, oh, this is going to be great or this is going to be bad. I like to have something tangible.
But given what you've seen of Watts, you're okay. You're on board.
Yeah, sure.
With his films, okay. I really want to hear Ben Grimm drop an F-bomb, though. That's it's bleeping clobbering time. It's got to be that's what it's got to be. None of this PG-rated stuff because it's gonna be. His name is Ben Grimm after all, so let's grim and gritty it up, folks. No, I'm joking. People, don't come in the YouTube comments saying I don't know what the fan. I get it. I'm joking.
I just want to see him say "ring thing, do your thing." I'm kidding, by the way. If you don't know what that reference is to, look up the history of the thing.
Yeah. So, all right. So Spider-Man. We know that the third Spider-Man is filming. Mm-hmm. We know that it's scheduled to release in theaters in December of 2021. Mm-hmm. About a year from now. And we found some things out that are leading fans to believe that in some form or fashion, this is a Spider-Verse type of film. Because it was previously confirmed months ago that Jamie Foxx is returning as his version of Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which starred Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker and another one of my multiverse wives, Emma Stone, in a fantastic turn as Gwen Stacy. We also recently found out, via the trades, like the Jamie Foxx situation, that Alfred Molina is returning to play his version of Dr. Octopus.
Yes.
Otto Octavius. By the way, for my money, Spider-Man 2 is the best live-action Spider-Man movie ever made.
Oh, I would agree.
Just my opinion, and apparently Donnie's.
And I'm not even, and I will say this, Dr. Octopus is not, he's not a top character as far as my favorites go, but the way he was adapted on film, I think actually made some of the weaknesses of the character go away, and Molina gave such an impressive performance. Yeah. And really that last scene where Mary Jane comes to Peter's apartment and, she says, "Go get him, Tiger," and you see him swing out of the apartment. That is Spider-Man in a nutshell. That was just such a beautiful scene.
Yeah. And then the third film. Anyway, no, but so we've got those two coming back. We already know Kevin Feige has said that WandaVision connects to Spider-Man, connects to Doctor Strange, and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, I emphasize that because, well, you get where I'm going. Second of all, who's directing the second Doctor Strange film? Sam Raimi, who directed the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy. I wonder if there's any, shenanigans going on there. There have been reports from Collider. Now, this is not Hollywood Reporter, so let's preface that.
Okay.
The studio has not come out and said this, but that Collider is reporting that both Andrew Garfield, Kristen Dunst are, according to Collider, they've signed. They're in as their versions of Peter Parker and Mary Jane, respectively. There were at the time of that report, which was about a month and a half ago now. There were negotiations being finalized for Emma Stone in a limited capacity to return as Gwen Stacy, limited because she's pregnant, and no, not my alternate universe self was not the cause of that, regrettably. But she's in negotiations, as is Tobey Maguire.
And by the way, to me, this is a very organic extension for this character. As popular as Into the Spider-Verse was, the animated version, doing a live-action version, to me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody saw not everybody. Some people saw the vidcast where I almost stopped breathing, trying to announce the return of Michael Keaton as Batman. The only other character there are only two other characters that I could get excited about seeing multiverse versions of. That would be Superman and Spider-Man. And given the nature of the way they've set up their, the way Marvel has had their films over the years, the only character that they could pull this off with right now is Spider-Man. Because there's been a multitude of them. And from a story point of view, it's the only one that makes sense because it's actually happened in the book. There's a plausible reasoning for it. And I think, look, to see if all these reports are right and all those people are coming back, to have an action sequence where all three Spider-Men are fighting together, like, I'm going to have to wear a diaper to the theater. I really hope Flashpoint and Spider-Man are spaced out at several different months of the year, because otherwise it's going to be a disaster. It's not going to smell good in that theater. I'll tell you that much. When theaters are back up again. But But I like who would ever when I was watching, the first Spider-Man in 2002. I never thought that I would see multiple versions of the same guy on the same character in one film. Um, and when I watched Into the Spider-Verse, I said it's a great, in terms of not limiting to live action. That might be my favorite Spider-Man movie. I'd have to think on it some more, but it's definitely in my top 3 for sure. When I was watching that movie, I said, man, that would be so cool if they could do that in live action. And my follow-up statement at the time was, they never will because they don't have the testicular fortitude, these studios, to do such a thing.
WWF reference.
Right. And
WWE.
And then both Warner Brothers and apparently Disney and Sony said, yeah, hold both our beers. So I think when I talk, I think studios just like to say, yeah, he doesn't think we can do it. Let's do it. So I'm. They've almost set me up now, Donnie, that they better cast the remaining people that are set to have been cast. Because damn, do I want to see that.
Likewise, I liked both versions, the previous versions by both Garfield and Maguire. I had issues, here and there, but seeing 3 versions of Spider-Man together, it reminded me of, seeing the Flash Dynasty together, seeing, Jay and Barry and Wally all together on the Flash, seeing 3 versions of Spider-Man, I just think could be such a powerful moment.
Now, Donnie, they mentioned that Emma Stone is pregnant.
Okay.
But, so I know that
it's not yours. We've established this.
Yes,
okay.
we've established it. Listen, if they tell me it's mine, I'll step up. I mean, we'll do the whole
Good for you.
She can divorce whoever she's involved with, and I'll do my duty and marry her in the whole 9 yards. That's not a problem. Just call me. Here's my phone. It's on vibrate. But no, we know that she's pregnant. So it's not like she's going to be doing God knows what kind of action sequences, I'm assuming.
And she doesn't need to.
Right. And I don't think the appearance of the other 2 Spider-Men means that they're going to continue on past this. I mean, they may appear in Doctor Strange too, but in terms of beyond this trilogy of multiverse films, I don't see them all of a sudden getting their own Spider-Man movies. Like Tom Holland is the main guy.
I don't think either guy really wants to continue. I think they'd both be down for one movie. I don't think they want to come on and
However, Donnie, hear me out on this.
I will hear you out.
You get Emma Stone. You somehow establish that a version of Gwen Stacy is back. How do you not take that actress of that caliber once she's done the pregnancy, she's had time off with the baby, and she comes back to acting? How do you not take her and develop Spider-Gwen projects?
That's a good point. If she's interested, I mean, that's obviously she's the Gwen that we know. More so than Bryce Dallas Howard, since she was kind of a minor character. Minor character in Spider-Man 3. So
also Multiverse wife. Just throw that out there.
Okay, so you got 2 Gwens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But like to me, if I'm the studio and I'm bringing her back, I'm definitely gauging the interest. Say, listen, take the time you need with the baby. When you're ready to come back, let's do some business.
Fair enough.
That would be on my agenda.
Yeah, like I said, fair enough. If they can convince her to do that, again, Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, whatever you want to call her, extremely popular with young kids. So. Yeah.
And also, Donnie, you got to feel that at some point, Tom Holland, as Spider-Man, is going to cross over with Tom Hardy as Venom and Jared Leto as Morbius, right?
We would hope that eventually, you know, obviously a lot of people want to see Spider-Man and Venom together at some point.
The only other way I would use one of the other two Spider-Mans, probably Andrew Garfield, is if Sony wants to have their cake and eat it too and say, okay, Tom Holland will be the Spider-Man that interacts with the MCU verse. And then something happens in this Spider-Man 3 where we go back to a world where the Spider-Man of Tom Hardy's Venom verse with Morbius in it ends up being Andrew Garfield.
There's a lot of different ways they could go with this.
Here's the only reason I say that as a possibility, because Andrew Garfield loves the character, but loved playing it. His gripe was the way it was handled to try and force a MCU for Spider-Man. But if they can tell stories in a meaningful way and have him interact with those and give him some assurances that, okay, we're going to bring you back for the purposes of being in this corner of the Sony universe, I think there's a scenario where he'd be open to it.
Think so? Okay.
Because I don't think it's probable, but it's possible, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
So we'll see, but I'm stoked. And I can't wait for the next iteration of Spider-Man. And of course, I'm looking forward to Venom 2. Let There Be Carnage?
Let There Be Carnage.
Let There Be Carnage, indeed.
Yeah.
Directed by Alfred Pennyworth himself. No, not Steven, but Andy Serkis.
I just can't wait. You know, the Venom Carnage rivalry is one of my favorite in comics, and I've been waiting for that since the 90s, so I can't wait to see that.
And then also Morbius.
Yes.
All right, now, before we move on to comics, Donnie,
okay.
One more thing. Calling it now. The next Spider-Man movie after whatever this one's called will feature Spider-Man teaming up with Venom to battle Carnage.
And it'll be called Home on the Symbiote. No, just kidding.
But that's what I think there's going to be a movie, whether it's Venom 3 or Spider-Man 4, where those three characters are doing some battle.
You could see an adaptation of the 90s crossover called Planet of the Symbiotes, which is interesting. That actually does tie into the comics that we're about to talk about here. So,
yeah, so that's my theory. With all that said, that brings the live action portion of the podcast to a close. So, Donnie, let's delve into the comics. What do we have?
Well, there are a number of comics coming in March, and we don't have time to cover them all. It's a huge amount. But since we were talking about Spider-Man, there's some big Spider-Man news coming up. In Amazing Spider-Man number 61, it's either 61 or 62. There's a little bit of gray area at this point. My guess is maybe this event happens in 61, and then you get a full addressing of it in 62, and that will be a new Spider-Man costume, as well as a new job for Peter Parker. So, losing his job at the Daily Bugle, he decides to go back to college and finish his doctoral thesis, and he gets this new look. And as of right now, we have not seen that look. I don't know when we will see that look, but obviously, if you know the old Back in Black storyline, if you know the black costume that eventually leads to Venom, that was a very popular move by Marvel. So, and we've seen numerous Spider-Man costumes over the years. Seems like we're getting a new one. Maybe this could be something that is popular with readers. What do you think, Adam?
Well, I think anytime Spider-Man gets a new costume, some people love it, some people hate it. I mean, that's the nature of altering superhero costumes. I'm partial to the Spider-Man in black and with the symbiote. I just love it. There was the storyline before Brand New Day where he went, back to black. I think it was called Back in Black, where I just love it. So I don't know if he'll be in black again, but I'm open to an interpretation to see what it is. I'll definitely be reading the story because I'm currently reading the Last Rites storyline that I told you about. So I'll continue following the book. So I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
It sounds like it'll be a good jumping on point for somebody who hasn't been reading. I think 62 seems like the good jumping on point, according to what I've read.
Well, speaking along those lines, we also see that the symbiote itself, the original titular symbiote, Marvel has announced that in Venom's title, and this probably has to do with the crossover event King in Black, will be the end of the Venom symbiote as we know it. And Donny Cates has made mention of the milestone 200th issue of Venom coming up, and that we will see the end of the Venom symbiote. So we don't exactly know how that will end with the King in Black storyline, but it seems like there's a big narrative shift for the symbiote coming up. So what do you make of that?
It's very interesting because clearly there's still going to be a Venom title.
Sure.
So the character's not going anywhere. It's going to alter, but my question is, how much can you change that? It's so iconic that there's only, like, you don't want to stray too far away from the, what works and the iconography, right? So it'll be interesting. And again, I've kind of paused my Venom reading only because because I know it's tying in with this King in Black stuff. So I want to read that all as part of a bigger,
Right. I want the collected editions too.
Yeah. So I've kind of paused Venom to just before that started. Like I'm still digitally collecting it. I'm just behind. But I trust what the writer's doing because up until where I hit the pause button, I was loving the title. So he's clearly got a place where he wants to take the character, and I'm going to see it out. I just hope they don't stray too far from what works with the character and what makes the character the character.
Well, even though I say that, and I reported what they said here, the end of the Venom symbiote as we know it, there are also other symbiote titles that are coming in March. One is Scream #1, which is a character, that I have liked a lot over the years. And Planet of the Symbiotes, and as far as I know, this is another story titled similarly to the one that happened in the 90s. So, again, we don't have a lot of information on where these are going to go, how they're going to tie in with King in Black, but I'm very interested to see how these do. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. Venom is my favorite Marvel character, the Eddie Brock version, and so I'm a huge fan of the symbiote characters too. So I'm interested to see where Marvel goes with this.
We're going to have to talk off air about a plan to cover.
We will cover it all on the Multiverse Musings podcast network.
But we'll formulate a plan for that. But yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm willing to see where it goes.
Couple of other notes here. We see Captain Marvel #27, Carol Danvers will break up with War Machine. They've been an item for quite a while. That's actually yeah. I actually do like that couple together. One of my favorite moments in recent years was Black Panther saw them kiss, and he said something along the lines of, ancestors, please let me not puke in my mask or throw up in my mask. Evidently, Black Panther doesn't like public displays of affection.
Yeah,
but
he's not one of those OTP shippers kind of.
Right. But evidently, Captain Marvel takes it pretty hard when she breaks up with War Machine, and an intervention is required by her friends. So that should be interesting. We also have a Captain America anniversary tribute, and I see that the cover is an homage to Avengers #4. The original time that Captain America came back into the Marvel continuity. And we also get Deadpool Nerdy 30, and that will be drawn by the ever controversial Rob Liefeld. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, the anniversary issue for Captain America looks interesting. Like I said, I've had starts and stops with Cap. The Brubaker run was fantastic. I like a bit of what a good bit of what I've read of the current run with Cap. Very topical with today's times that we're kind of going through. So that'll be interesting. And then with Deadpool's 30th anniversary, how can you not love Deadpool? That book is always a without getting vulgar, a crap ton of fun, to not use the other word.
It's always a crude romp. How about that?
Yeah, and so again, Deadpool is another character I'd like to key in on at some point because I love the character. And he's Canadian, so I got a fist bump to my homie. But yeah, I'll be there for both of those anniversary issues.
And one last comics note for March: Killmonger will return to Black Panther in Black Panther #24.
Yeah, and to my knowledge, that book is ending, correct? That series is coming to a close.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'll be long where we see Black Panther without a title.
Do you think there'll be a relaunch that may highlight what we may see in the Black Panther sequel?
Marvel is usually pretty effective at sort of lining up to a degree their books and their movies, so that there's synergy there. So I think that when Black Panther comes back, will T'Challa still be Black Panther?
It'll be interesting to see.
I don't think they'll necessarily, how can I say this without being insensitive? I don't think they're going to kill off the character just because the actor passed on, right?
No, it's like you say,
that would be stupid, in my opinion.
No, I don't, and I don't think even the biggest Chadwick Boseman fans, and I'm definitely in that camp, want to see Black Panther completely done away with. The character is too meaningful to comic book history. So,
but I think there's a way that he can step up, he can pass the mantle on in a voluntary manner, and still do, still be a presence in the world, but not physically suiting up.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that title and how they reboot it.
Yeah. I don't think it'll be long before we have another title.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, some interesting stuff coming from Marvel, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And what we will do is we'll try and definitely do a good mix of highlighting some of the current stuff and also the classic stuff. So we'll find it. Maybe we'll do shorter episodes of the Vidcast where it's just when it's not a news dump like today. It'll be we'll just review one of the newer series that's currently going on. Like, let's say King in Black, we'll do an episode or a couple episodes devoted to that. And then on the podcast portion, we can do it where it's volume 1 of Marvel Masterworks Fantastic Four. We'll figure it out, but we're definitely going to try and keep current with certain books, I think,
Right.
As they're happening, and then others will wait more on. So we'll figure that out. But that's our plan. You're gonna get a good mix of current and classic on this show.
Speaking of classic comics, Adam, why don't you tell us about your earliest Marvel memories?
Well, in terms of Marvel in general, it's all thanks to the '90s Spider-Man cartoon. That
Excellent.
was my entry point into Marvel, because before then, it was my superhero diet consisted of Zorro, Batman, and Superman. And then if you count the Ninja Turtles and He-Man. But when you're talking about, I guess you can count them, but you know, that was the 4 or 5 course meal that I was partaking in. And then the '90s Spider-Man came out, the series, and I loved it. And the X-Men the series of the X-Men in the '90s, another one, I loved it. So those were really my entry forms into Marvel as a brand. Then what happened was, I was still a DC homer except for those cartoons for the most part. Then, here's the funny thing: I had watched the Blade movies, but I had no idea it was a comic. I just thought this was a cool, version of vampire mythology. I dig this. Then I watched the X-Men movies, and I remember them from the cartoon. So it was basically, I want to say the first X-Men, but it still didn't. I enjoyed the movie, but it wasn't something where I got to start reading the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I enjoyed the movie, but it wasn't where, right after opening weekend, I said, okay, next Wednesday when I go to the comic store, I'm going to grab my first Spider-Man movie. That wasn't the case. That did happen, though, when I saw the 2003 Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck.
I enjoy that movie, too.
I unequivocally, and I don't care, people could say it's got all kinds of flaws in it. It's not perfect. No movie is perfect, in my opinion. But I love that movie. The director's cut is better, but I even enjoyed the theatrical. Complete with the swing, because look, you put Jennifer Garner on a swing, I'll enjoy it even if it's cheesy as hell. I don't care. By the way, Jennifer Garner, she's on the list. Ben, I feel I gotta say, Ben Affleck, that my heart broke for you when you separated from her. That's where my heart broke for you, buddy. But no. That movie was the moment where I said, I really want to read Daredevil comics. So I went to the comic store and I bought Born Again, graphic novel by Frank Miller, and Daredevil Yellow by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. And I loved it. I absolutely was blown away. So I read those 2 volumes. And then I added, back then, because Comixology really wasn't a thing at that point, I added Daredevil to my physical pull list. So then once you're hooked, you start, okay, what else from the MCU or from the Marvel Universe can I read? Because I was already reading. At that point, when I added Daredevil to my pull list, was probably 04, so after I'd read those 2 volumes. It was around the time that I started reading Batman and Superman by Jeff Loeb. And because at that time, when I added Daredevil, I was collecting a whopping 3 titles. It was Batman, Superman, and Batman Superman. Those were the 3. And I had said, stupidly, okay, it's just these 3, that's it, no more. I'm done, that's it. The occasional graphic novel, sure, but these are the 3 ongoings, and I'm not adding any more. And,
And here you are, all these years later.
My wallet is saying, you moron, you done.
Oh.
I can hear my wallet yelling at me now.
The industry had its hooks in you.
Yeah, so I start reading Daredevil, and I'm like, okay, that's it now. And now I'm up to 4. Here's where we cut it off. And then, my comic book guy, he's a sly little guy, a sly devil, and he said, you should really give Spider-Man a look. I'm like, all right. What graphic novels?
Can't argue with him there.
Yeah. What graphic novels you got? And he's like, they're doing this ultimate line where it's a fresh start. It's a little bit of an alternate take. Check the graphic novels out. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 volumes in, not all at once, but over time. Then I'm like, well, crap, I want to get into like regular Spider-Man, like current, like 616 or whatever the hell he's called now, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, there's this one more day, 4-issue story happening in the main Spider-Man books. Read that. And that's very contentious with people.
Hugely controversial. Yes.
It's the separation of the Peter Parker, Mary Jane.
Yes.
I thought the art was great. The story was great by I think it's Straczynski wrote that. And I liked it, and I said, well, this brand new day, it's a fresh start. Like it's a jumping on point, right?
Right.
Let's add it to what's 5 titles? Really? How can it go wrong?
It's just $3 or $4 more.
Little did I know it was a twice monthly book. I said, shit.
Yeah.
Shit. I think around that time, Joss Whedon, before he was the Antichrist that Zack Snyder's fan base thinks he is, came on and did Astonishing X-Men. The Cure storyline. So, my comic book guy wisely said, did you like the X-Men movies? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, Joss Whedon, the guy that created Buffy, Angel, and this and that. Yeah, I like those shows. Those shows are great. He's doing an X-Men book. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, it's not going to be one of those ongoing ones. He's doing a temporary run. It's like, yeah, it'll probably be a year long, 12 issues. I'm like, all right.
Again, he was throwing out the bait.
Once a year is worth of 6 titles for a year. I can swing that.
Yeah.
So it ballooned where at one point I think I was between DC and Marvel. Again, pre-Comixology, I was getting about 15 friggin' titles a month, and it was great. Loved it.
Not for your wallet, but yes, it was great. I'm sure.
The wallet and the space was like, this ain't gonna last long, my friend. You gotta make choices. And then Comixology came about, and that was the biggest revelation to me because I'm like, all right, DC is I love both because we're doing this podcast, but DC is my home, my comfort food. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's always been there, always be there. So I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna do physical books, it'll be DC. To support Marvel and keep spreading the money around, I'll do Marvel exclusive digital. And that's what I've been doing. What am I currently reading? What's on my list, if you will, not the wives list, the actual comic list. On the Marvel side, it's The Amazing Spider-Man. It's Venom. The Avengers. I do, even though he's not my favorite writer, Fantastic Four, but I do those in trades, so I don't do them monthly. I wait for trades. Yeah. I will be doing Hickman's initial run of X-Men confused the ever-loving you-know-what out of me. So I kind of do that in trades, but I am going to be collecting digitally It's called X-Men. I think it's X-Men Legacy. I think. If you heard of that.
Yes.
That'll be one that I'm picking up. Because the thing with me and the X-Men is, I need a book that gives me the classic team that I'm familiar with, and is not a cluster, of I gotta understand this continuity, that continuity, and everything in between. And I think that comic will allow me to do that. So that's what I'll be collecting as well. So ongoings or monthlies are Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Venom, Avengers, and it will be when it starts that X-Men book. And then in terms of waiting for the trade, I do Thor, Iron Man, and Fantastic Four. That's where I am. And Hulk.
Yeah, that's a nice diverse list. Yeah,
that's where I am. Yeah. What about your history with the Marvel Universe?
Well, I'll say my earliest memories were reading Spider-Man and the Hulk in the early 80s, as well as watching their respective cartoons. Of course, that was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and the Hulk. They were both on Saturday mornings. I remember Stan Lee, narrating those cartoons at the beginning. I always loved that, and I still hear Stan Lee's voice a lot in my head. I'm a huge fan of Black Panther, both from the comics and the movie, and R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman, of course. I do have a favorite character, and of course that is the Eddie Brock version of Venom. One of the landmark moments in my comic book life was I remember buying the Amazing Spider-Man number 300 right before church, and running back to church and reading it right before church started. And another moment in my life last year, I finally got to meet David Michelinie and tell him that story and thank him for my Venom fandom and all that the character has meant to me. I got his autograph on a couple versions of this guy that are still in the package. And I just want to say that I'm extremely honored to be here on Stan Lee's birthday, what would have been his 98th birthday. Yes. And I'm honored to launch this vidcast delving into the Marvel Universe.
It's going to be fun. I've always wanted to do, what we do for the DC universe in terms of comics, and now we have that chance. So we look forward to diving in to that, starting next month, properly. So look forward to that. We certainly are. But Donnie, before that, if people want to talk to you about Marvel between now and then, where can they do that on social media?
You can find me on Twitter as the Emerald Enthusiast. I also have a YouTube channel where I do reviews of various Green Lantern and comic book related products. And you can also view that. And of course, there's the Multiverse Musings podcast network where you can find me and Adam if you want to talk about anything comic book related. And I'll send it over to you, sir.
Yeah, and the network, you can find the Facebook group. Search Multiverse Musings podcast network Facebook page. I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there. The Multiverse Musings podcast network Twitter page is at MMNPDC, so you can follow us there and chat with us there. My personal Twitter page is at Adam_LeafSfan. You can follow me and chat with me about Spider-Man, Venom, Thor, or any other Marvel character or DC character there, and I'll be happy to continue chatting with you.
How about the Leafs?
That too, although I'm not as PG when I'm talking about the Leafs, so be warned. But I'll definitely talk about any of that with all of you. And in honor of Stan Lee's birthday, I will say this, that the Marvel Universe, both in comics and on film and in television, is forever. From the first Excelsior to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.